Alright, Scooby Gang, we're back. It's another certified hood classic. I'm recording this at night, obviously, because, the windows would be open. Today is a doozy, man. I mean, how's everybody doing? Of course, I have to ask. How's your past week been? It's been about, 6-7 days now? My days? They're going great. You know why? Because the Eagles drafted a white cornerback. We have now truly done what Martin Luther King wanted us to do. True equality amongst the lands. Now we got Talcum Jenkins and Brian Chalkins in the backfield, man. But aside from that, for today's video, we got a couple of doozies for you. Well, one of them isn't really much of a doozy if you actually know the person well enough. And the other one, it kind of is a doozy. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think I would have to talk about this, but I'd rather talk about something like this than have y'all sit through me reviewing a Taylor Swift album for 8 minutes, so you're welcome. But for today's video, if you haven't seen the news, it's in regard to the lawsuits between Kanye West, unsurprisingly, and Meg Thee Stallion, which is a little bit surprising, but I'll also break down why it's not surprising at all after I summarize what the hell just happened. Because she's been put under a lawsuit by her own ex-cameraman, Mr. Emilio Garcia, for unpaid wages, sexual harassment, toxic workplace, and a bunch of other stuff that I feel like isn't very appropriate to say in this video, but I'm gonna say them regardless, and hopefully I don't get demonetized. And one of the allegations, you've more likely seen this, but one of the allegations that keeps popping up in the headlines is how in the fact of Meg Thee Stallion actually forcing Mr. Emilio Garcia to watch her have sexual intercourse while they were in a vehicle out there traveling in Ibiza, Spain back in 2022. And while that is definitely an issue for somebody who simply just wants to do their job, I feel like the sensationalized headlines greatly ignore the other problems that lie underneath for our victim here, Mr. Emilio Garcia, such as the constant sexual harassment that Emilio received from Megan Thee Stallion and her team, alongside the bullying and fat shaming as well that Emilio received, and then with his pay being greatly diminished over time, turning into an independent contractor, not being able to receive any sort of insurance for his own personal care, and having to do the same amount of work for less money. And in terms of the bullying and the fat shaming, she'd call him things such as a fat bitch and tell him to spit his food out because he doesn't need to be eating. And she also prohibited him from working with other clients, which of course that would, mess up his own personal business because he is just a contractor. At the end of the day, all of his work is independent. He doesn't have some big corporate office building like Roc Nation has for Meg Thee Stallion, so he doesn't really have a lot to fall back on. So just to give my thoughts, I just want to say that if this is true, I do want to say that I am both disgusted and disappointed in Meg Thee Stallion, but at the same time, I am also not surprised. Think about it, right? You guys remember a few years back now, I think it's been about 2 years or something like that, when Lizzo got the lawsuit for all the allegations and everything like that because of the toxic work environment she created for her own employees, her own dancers, and how, she was bullying them, fat shaming them, sexual harassment, and all sorts of just inappropriate things that of course those workers just didn't appreciate. And of course with people like Lizzo who have this very bubbly public face thanks to their PR, of course it didn't work in her case, and she ended up quote unquote retiring or quitting music because more likely because she just didn't want to face the backlash and she wanted herself to be a victim, because that's usually how it goes. And I feel like in this case with the Meg Thee Stallion situation, I feel like her and Lizzo kind of have similar PR motions. They both portray this more happy-go-lucky, super positive, body positivity, women in arms. You know what I mean? It's a lot of really fun, very commercially safe energy alongside a lot of twerking videos that I can't stop watching, but we'll move past that. And when you look at a lot of the headlines, as I pointed out before, the only thing they're really pointing out is the fact of how Megan Thee Stallion forces you to watch her have sexual intercourse with another woman. Of course that would only fuel the fire of a bunch of corny teenagers who have zero social life, who just want to go into comment sections to say a bunch of homophobic stuff because they think that sexual harassment against men is something that is silly and just doesn't exist. Although these will be the same dudes who will turn around and be like, why doesn't nobody care about men's mental health? But I digress. But at the end of the day, all we really have right now is just words, just allegations, so we don't really know if it's true. Of course, Megan Thee Stallion has denied it, unsurprisingly. Roc Nation has stayed silent, more likely because they're just playing around in the background with a bunch of media tabloids, which is why we're even getting the headlines we have now, to try and downplay the situation, to try and keep that, cute, fun, sexy figure, ideal, whatever that Megan Thee Stallion has going on. Although when you actually look into the article, it's a lot more darker and deeper than that. I personally hope there is some justice found for Emilio Garcia. I mean, of course, in a lot of these situations with celebrities, you know, since they're the ones that's in the face and they're the ones that's making all the money for these brands and these labels and whatever, they're the ones who usually tend to be able to get away with a lot more. They usually tend to be the ones that get away with a lot more, while the people in the background have to be the ones that suffer. And in this case, Emilio is the one that would have to suffer through all of the, you know, mental trauma or whatever they had to go through dealing with such a toxic work environment that also affected their own financial situation. But then moving on, we have the black man himself, Mr. Kanye West, being put in a lawsuit for anti-black discrimination and wrongful termination, which when you really think about it is the least surprising thing ever, coming from a guy who said that slavery was a choice, hasn't been with a black woman in like almost 2 decades, and constantly spews anti-Semitic and anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric like all the time. So Mr. Benjamin Provo, who used to be a security guard for Kanye West, he stated that Kanye West was doing a lot of very anti-black, very discriminatory things while he was doing security at the Donda school, which would include berating the black co-workers, and you know, there being suspicions of Kanye paying those black workers less than he would pay the non-black workers. Then there was also the fact of how Kanye tried to get Mr. Provo to shave his dreads, which Mr. Provo did not, because those are seen as an exercise of Mr. Provo's Muslim faith. So of course he just didn't cut it, but at the same time, unfortunately, Kanye also immediately fired him. And whenever Mr. Provo wanted to make a complaint about his pay, he would go to the directing management, Mr. John Hicks, to which John Hicks would just reply with, "Don't talk about money. Kanye doesn't like talking about money." More likely because Kanye does not have said money to even be paying anybody anything, and he's kind of just running off vibes right now and anti-Semitism or whatever the hell. You know how this shit goes, man. And there's like a bunch of other stuff in this lawsuit as well, but like just to give you the spark notes, essentially Kanye is a piece of shit, like once again. And although this is unsurprising to me, because Kanye West is once again another black celebrity who uses the quote-unquote convenience of being a minority in America to be able to push their own agendas and be able to do all kinds of fucked up bullshit to people. It's funny as well because when you do some digging, and I remember this myself, but back in like the early 2000s, you know, when Hurricane Katrina happened and everything, and you know, you had all those celebrities on TV talking about like donating, you know, for the victims and everything like that. Then here comes Kanye West talking about how George Bush doesn't care about black people, in which he was not wrong. George Bush does not actually care about black people, but at the same time, when you look at the situation now of Kanye West also not really caring about black people, it really puts things into perspective on how little the black community matters to just any popular figure. But I guess this goes back to what I said like a couple videos back or whatever about how we gotta stop putting celebrities on some sort of high moral standard or whatever. I understand these people are influential figures, but at the end of the day, these people are solely entertainers. That's all we know these people for. They're not our heroes. I'm sorry. I know you were bumping Yeezus back when you were in like 8th grade or whatever, but they're not our heroes. These people are solely entertainers, nothing more and nothing less. And the moment you see them as anything else differently, that's on you if your feelings get hurt when they do some absolutely wild shit like Kanye has. And it's funny seeing people clutch pearls about Kanye opening up a whole sex industry. I'm not going to say like the actual word because I don't want to get demonetized, but the fact that that's the line that people set for Kanye, but completely ignore all the other anti-black and anti-Semitic and all the other just really bigoted bullshit that Kanye was on these past couple of years for like a while now. But now all of a sudden this dude says, yo, I want to make sex movies. And now all of a sudden everybody wants to clutch their pearls and everybody wants to act like that's the issue. It kind of makes me question if people even care about this lawsuit, which they more likely don't. But I've seen more news about the Kanye sex thing than I've actually seen about the Kanye racism thing. And even when it comes to the whole Kanye anti-Semitism thing, it feels more like people are just moving the goalposts with that than I've seen people actually want to move the goalposts for the whole Kanye sex thing. Like, I'd rather move the goalpost for the Kanye sex thing than I would ever move the goalpost than for the whole anti-Semite thing, because I would rather Kanye make sex movies than hate Jewish people. I don't know. Am I crazy for asking something like that? Because, you know, I guess in y'all sense, I guess y'all care more about Jesus than you care about sex movies. But at the same time, y'all are meat munching and anti-Semite. And, you know, Jesus was a Jew, but like, you know what? Never mind. I can't. If I think too hard on how much of a hypocrite all y'all Kanye stands are, it's gonna make my head hurt. As for Kanye, I feel like once again nothing's actually really gonna happen to him, because like at the end of the day, his fan base is just a bunch of loyal meat munchers, and those said meat munchers are just a bunch of 15-year-olds who like to watch IShowSpeed because he says the N-word. But that's just my 2 cents on the whole drama. Is anything ever actually going to happen to a celebrity when it comes to these kind of lawsuits? I feel like there's not, man. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts in the comments. I don't know what else to do. You know what? Actually, I need to go to sleep. I haven't slept in a while, so I'm going to go do that. Yeah, have a good night. I don't know. Peace.